Hello and welcome to Read Reads. Today I'm talking about Don DeLillo's White Noise, which I finished reading actually last year, but I wanted to wait until I saw the movie as well because I did want to do a bit of a comparison. For the most part I'll be talking about just the book, but I will mention a couple of brief things that I liked about the movie and some of the things I didn't like. I don't think the movie was super well executed, but in any case, White Noise by Don DeLillo is the first DeLillo that I have read. I do have Underworld, and I know that it's in the similar sort of postmodern encyclopedic novel of Gravity's Rainbow and Infinite Jest, but considering my reading list, I didn't think I'll get around to it really at any point this year. And while I did really enjoy Don DeLillo's writing, it wasn't the sort of like put everything aside and go and instantly read all of his work that I might feel with some other authors. But nevertheless, you'll probably know that White Noise is the story about, alright, plot in 20 seconds, so the 20 or 30 seconds. So Don DeLillo's White Noise basically follows the main character Jack Gladney and his family, his wife Babette, and their multitude of kids from different marriages, exploring and the parents specifically confronting the feelings of death, confronting the expectation. There are some side characters like Murray, who's played by Don Cheadle, and I think that was a really great choice in the movie. And really, the book is just a series of conversations about death with some kind of like plot stuff that ends up happening. Babette starts taking a drug called Dilar that is supposed to null the fear of death, but it ends up not working. TLDR, Jack Gladney goes and tries to kill the guy who was selling Babette Dilar, and it doesn't work. But anyway, that's not like, yes, that is the story, and one thing is that the story is not exactly subtle about its themes, so I would say that it's very much but it's not trying to be subtle. That's the thing, is it's trying to, in my opinion, what I got most out of this novel was how well Don DeLillo is able to render like realistic characters and kind of create realistic dialogue, and then throw in those like, I wonder which one of us is going to die first, or throw in these like perfect sort of questions that just you get comfortable because he's talking about banal things. He's talking about daily life with the kids, like what's going to be for breakfast. There are these great long strings of conversations that manifest in the quote, the family unit is the vessel of misinformation, or something along those lines. That was again quoted and used quite well in the movie. But then you'll get these really bigger questions that I think that because DeLillo's painted such a great picture, a clear picture with how he describes the family members, that's what makes the effect come across so well. More thematic things that I really liked. I loved the idea of him being the head of Hitler studies, but not being able to speak German. It kind of reminded me of Snow Country, where the main character is learning about Western opera and dance and ballet just from books. There's kind of disconnection. And then there are these scenes where Jack is trying to go and learn German, but he can't sort of speak the language of death. You know, it's pretty on the nose. But what I do like is that when German comes in again, and comes in pretty importantly, is at the very end after he's gone to shoot Mr. Grey, and he kind of gets taken to the hospital. This whole time throughout the book, he's been talking about how Wilder, I can't remember how it's pronounced. I think in the movie they pronounced it Wilder, or they pronounced it Wilder. Anyway, I'm going to stick with Wilder. And so throughout the movie, both Jack and Babette are talking about how the youngest one, Wilder, is sort of like their only relief from the fear of death. Because he's so young, he's not really asking those sort of questions. I mean, he's not even really conscious of it. I think in the movie, all of the kids are a little bit older than they're meant to be. I'm pretty sure Wilder's meant to be sort of like 3 or 4 years old. And at the end, when he goes to the hospital and the Germans are speaking, and there's the German nuns that are speaking to him, I did really like that he goes through these moments of sort of just like counting and saying simple words in German, because it's sort of this using a foreign language to almost sort of like numb your consciousness so that you can go back to speaking like a child, which for me, trying to speak a foreign language, that's the sort of stuff that I hate. But for someone who's trying to confront fears of death and is finding refuge in the ignorance of kids, then I thought that was a really cool ending, and I liked that. I like that DeLillo included it. There's honestly not that much more to say on the novel other than that I just want to read some examples of some extracts that I really enjoyed. So, and particularly the ones that I found myself highlighting were ones that showed DeLillo shining in kind of describing characters. That night, seconds after going to sleep, I seemed to fall through myself, a shallow, heart-stopping plunge. Jarred awake, I stared into the dark, realizing I'd experienced the more or less normal muscular contraction known as a myoclonic jerk. Is this what it's like? Abrupt? Peremptory? Shouldn't death, I thought, be a swan dive, graceful, white-winged and smooth, leaving the surface undisturbed? Jack Gladney describing his son, Heinrich. I watched him walk through the downpour to the school entrance. He moved with deliberate slowness, taking off his camouflage cap 10 yards out from the doorway. At such moments, I find I love him with an animal desperation and need to take him under my coat and crush him to my chest, keep him there, protect him. He seems to bring a danger to him. It collects in the air, follows him from room to room. Danger collecting in the air, obviously coming back into play with the kind of toxic airborne incident. And here's another great one of talking about Babette and Jack's relationship. Babette and I tell each other everything. I have told everything such as it was at the time to each of my wives. There is more to tell, of course, as marriages accumulate. But when I say I believe in complete discourse, I don't mean it cheaply as anecdotal sport or shallow revelation. It is a form of self-renewal and a gesture of custodial trust. Love helps us develop an identity secure enough to allow itself to be placed in another's care and protection. Babette and I have turned our lives for each other's thoughtful regard. Turned them in the moonlight in our pale hands, spoken deep into the night about fathers and mothers, childhood, friendships, awakenings, old loves, old fears, except fears of death. No detail must be left out, not even a dog with ticks or a neighbor's boy who ate an insect on a dare. The smell of pantries, the scent of empty afternoons, the feel of things as they rained across our skin, things as facts and passions, the feel of pain, loss, disappointment, breathless delight. In these night recitations, we create a space between things as we feel them at the time and as we speak them now. This is the space reserved for irony, sympathy, and fond amusement, the means by which we rescue ourselves from the past. And that's a great example of exactly how DeLillo creates I think a rich, fleshed out sort of marriage life so that he can interject these ideas. And that was another thing that, just kind of reading that now, one of the big flaws that I found with the movie was, of course it's over-eagerness to be faithful, and there are many scenes that are copy-pasted, more or less, but of course, due to the time limits of a movie, there are some important things that got cut out, and some kind of unnecessary things, like maybe I missed the point, but I don't know what we got out of having a long extended chase scene in the car when they're leaving the first evacuation zone. It was just like what is anyone who's watching this movie wanting this? Anyway, that was my big digression. And I also don't know how I feel about Babette showing up at the end in the movie. It felt a little bit like yeah, I can see why, but the whole kind of having her kind of smugly show up and be like, oh yeah, all men are killers, and then they have this kind of overcoming fear of death together. It didn't work for me because of the reasons that I talked about with Jack learning German, and that being one of the things where she wasn't learning German, and so there was just this whole tirade from a German nurse that yeah, the effect kind of fell flat with having Babette there. Here's another quote that sounds really good in film and sounds really good in the book, and it was more or less copy pasted from a pretty good performance from Adam Driver. But again, the whole movie has this kind of problem of kind of owning up to the fact that the dialogue is going to be janky, and you get used to it pretty quickly, but it is very expository. Like, characters are saying things that would not have been text, or would not have been dialogue, would have just been like main body text. This is at the end of the Murray Jack lecture or kind of interaction where they're comparing Adolf Hitler to Elvis Presley. And they're talking about crowds, sex, murders, someone called the speeches of Adolf Hitler. But wait, how familiar this all seems, how close to ordinary. Crowds come, get worked up, touch and press, people eager to be transported. Isn't this ordinary? We all know this. There must have been something different about those crowds. What was it? Let me whisper the terrible word from the Old English, from the Old German, from the Old Norse. Death. Many of these crowds were assembled in the name of death. They were there to attend tributes to the dead, processions, songs, speeches, dialogues with the dead, recitations of the names of the dead. They were there to see pyres and flaming wheels, thousands of flags dipped in salute, thousands of uniformed mourners. There were ranks and squadrons, elaborate backdrops, blood banners, and black dress uniforms. Crowds came to form a shield against their own dying. To become a crowd is to keep out death. To break off from the crowd is to risk death as an individual. To face dying alone. Crowds came for this reason above all others. They were there to be a crowd. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that that whole quote is kind of like copy pasted in the movie. So, oh yes. So returning and expanding upon the idea, the family is the cradle of the world's misinformation. There must be something in family life that generates factual error, over closeness, the noise and heat of being, perhaps something even deeper like the need to survive. Murray says we're fragile creatures surrounded by a world of hostile facts. Facts threaten our happiness and security. The deeper we delve into the nature of things, the looser our structure may seem to become. The family process works towards sealing off the world, again creating a crowd, a small kind of nuclear crowd. Small errors grow heads, fictions proliferate. I tell Murray that ignorance and confusion can't possibly be the driving force behind family solidarity. What an idea, what a subversion. He asks me why the strongest family units exist in the least developed countries. Not to know is a weapon of survival, he says. Magic and superstition become entrenched as the powerful orthodoxy of the clan. The family is strongest where objective reality is most likely to be misinterpreted. What a heartless theory, I say, but Murray insists it's true. And Murray is one of those sort of author insert characters where you kind of have, like, you're kind of persuaded into thinking that the main character, Jack Gladney, is an insert character because, you know, the author, the main character, but really Murray is kind of very transparently like just a mouthpiece or vessel for ideologies to kind of question the main character, question Jack. And in this sense, again, he has this sort of intangibility. He never really feels like a real character, and I don't know if that was something that it sort of complemented, because Don Cheadle, who is a black man, plays Murray in the movie, but he's not black. I think he's Irish or something in the book. I can double check. But I kind of actually enjoyed that switch simply for the fact that Murray has this translucency in the book. Another thing that kind of more or less came up verbatim in the movie, but it's when Jack realizes that he's got the Niodine D inside him, and the Simuvac man tells him that yes, this is real. You do actually have it. I stood absolutely still. If they thought I was already dead, they might be inclined to leave me alone. I think I felt as I would if a doctor had held an X-ray to the light showing a star-shaped hole at the center of one of my vital organs. Death has entered. It is inside you. You are said to be dying, and yet are separate from the dying, can ponder it at your leisure, literally see on the X-ray photograph or computer screen the horrible alien logic of it all. It is when death is rendered graphically, is televised so to speak, that you sense an eerie separation between your condition and yourself. A network of symbols has been introduced, an entire awesome technology wrested from the gods. It makes you feel like a stranger in your own dying. Again, kind of on the nose, especially considering the satires and critiques of consumerism and whatnot, which would obviously go on to inspire David Foster Wallace. And then, of course, here we go, like the least subtle metaphor. How strange it is. We have these deep, terrible, lingering fears about ourselves and the people we love. Yet we walk around, talk to people, eat and drink. We manage to function. The feelings are deep and real. Shouldn't they paralyze us? How is it we can survive them, at least for a while? We drive a car, we teach a class. How is it no one sees how deeply afraid we were last night, this morning? Is it something we all hide from each other by mutual consent? Or do we share the same secret without knowing it, wear the same disguise? What if death is nothing but a sound, electrical noise? You hear it forever, sound all around. How awful. Uniform, white. Sometimes it sweeps over me, she said, Babette. Sometimes it insinuates itself into my mind, little by little. I try to talk to it, not now, death. But yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to read, all of the extracts that I had. I did enjoy it, but again, it felt a little bit like... it felt more valuable for me as a character study as opposed to kind of this rich labyrinthian novel that you can kind of constantly go back to and find new meanings. But let me know what you thought of White Noise, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.